me the opportunity to speak to you about some news from Fitness Australia, particularly the issues I wanted to cover today are the regulation survey we did late last year, the member value survey we did late last year, the next steps coming out of those surveys, some strategic priorities that the board has also discussed in the last month or so, and also just give you an idea of some international aspects as well. Before I start, though, I'd like to acknowledge the First Nations people on whose land we are virtually meeting today across the country, and thank them for sharing this beautiful country with us. Acknowledge all elders past, present and emerging. My name is Barrie Elvish and it's my great pleasure to be the CEO of Fitness Australia. Also, I'd like to acknowledge Rachel, who's helping me today doing my slideshow. I'm a little bit of a Luddite or a dinosaur when it comes to this technology, so I'm relying on Rach to be able to bring the slides up for me. So just to start with, let's have a look at what's been going on internationally. So Rach, if you can bring up the 2 slides down. Okay, so Rach isn't quite with us at the moment, but if you can bring 2 slides up, please, Rach, on the international scene, what's been happening. Just to share with you, thank you, Rach. Here in Australia, we all acknowledge that the COVID-19 has been a huge disruption for our economy, for the community, and quite clearly for our sector. But you only have to look at the news, which is hitting our papers, the TV, the media every day, to see what's happening overseas, particularly with our friends over in India, to, I guess, consider that maybe here in Australia, we actually have dodged a bullet in terms of what's happened, and in New Zealand as well. Whether that's by good design, good politics, good luck, good physical location of the country being an island, whatever, I'll let you come to terms with that yourself, depending on your own political views, I guess. But I really do think we have dodged a bullet here. And to put that into some context, let me share some figures with you. So in America, at the moment, there are about 25% of gyms have closed. They haven't closed because they're in a lockdown. They've closed because they've gone out of business. And my counterparts in the States tell me they believe it'll go to about 28% before they actually start to recover from COVID-19. In Europe, it's actually worse. In Portugal and Italy, 50% of gyms are out of business. Again, not closed because of COVID lockdowns, but out of business, become insolvent, closed shop. So here in Australia, I think if we've had more than 0.05% of closures, I'd be very surprised. I'm only aware of one facility closing here in Australia, and that one was probably going to close anyway. The COVID problems probably just brought forward and exacerbated, but accelerated their closure. So here in Australia, absolutely, I believe we have dodged a bullet, and that's great for us. And let's hope we can continue down that path and not have too many more outbreaks as we saw in WA last week. And just on that point in WA, we were very disappointed to see that in that first lockdown, gyms once again were considered alongside the casino and nightclubs and were closed. And we ran a campaign over there in WA through the media, which got some quite good coverage and was covered in the media, on radio stations. I spoke on the ABC, etc. And so it was quite pleasing to see when they relaxed those restrictions, that gyms were excluded. So again, the casino and nightclubs were closed down, but gyms were able to reopen. And I think that's an example of the good advocacy. Some other international developments that have taken place in the last 12 months. There has been 71,000 new virtual apps, online training apps launched in the last 12 months, 71,000 across the world. 45% increase in expenditure, people actually accessing and buying those apps. So that won't come as a surprise to you, I'm sure. The other interesting thing which has come out of overseas is that in the UK particularly, the independent gyms are rebounding quicker than the corporate gyms. And they believe that's the case because independent gyms have been able to maintain a community with their membership more than perhaps some of the corporates have. They've been able to maintain member relationships, member engagement. And whether that's happening here in Australia or not, I'm not sure, but that's certainly the evidence which is coming out of the UK. Here in Australia, generally speaking, now the stats I'm going to share with you now are what has been reported back to me. So they are general comments. They may not relate particularly to your service, but these are what we're being told here in Australia. During lockdown, most gyms lost about 5% of their members. These are members who cancelled. But since reopening, in the majority of cases, most gyms have recovered that 5% loss to new members joining, most frequently coming off training at home in a virtual program, now looking for different equipment, looking for facilities, looking for the community engagement, looking for other people. So a 5% loss generally, more than made up for by a 5% recovery. Most gyms now operating at 85% or more capacity, and in many cases, gyms are operating 100% and in sometimes more than pre-COVID conditions. There are two exceptions to those positive results, and they are the CBD gyms and facilities in Melbourne and Sydney particularly, to a lesser degree in Adelaide and Brisbane and so on, but particularly Melbourne and Sydney, they are still suffering from problems of people not coming back yet. And that's primarily because the workforce have not gone back to those CBD areas. People haven't returned to work, so they're not going to the local gym in the city. They're more likely to be going to a local gym close to where they live. The other interesting indication that's coming out at the moment is my age group, the older cohort, haven't cancelled the memberships, but in some cases they've maintained a suspension. So they haven't come back to their gym yet. They're probably waiting for the vaccines to be rolled out more widely or to be reassured. So the other day I was at a gym on the North Shore here in Sydney. I spoke to two people that had come back for their first swim in the pool. I asked them, are they going back to the actual gym facility yet? And they said, no, they're not going back yet because they need to be reassured that it's safe to go back into that indoor environment. So my age group, a bit slow to come back. They haven't cancelled. They will come back. It's just a matter of maintaining that engagement with them. So that's a very quick update on what's been happening internationally. And while I remember it, just seeing a couple of comments in the chat room there. If you have a question or a comment, please put it into the chat room, and time permitting, we'll get round to it at the end of this session. Next slide, please, Rach. So one of the things that came out last year in the discussions we had with various health departments around the states, with health ministers, sports ministers, was a common theme. And so when we were developing our COVID safe protocols, and we were the first industry in Queensland to develop protocols were accepted as an industry in that state, we then modified those protocols for every other state, and they were introduced in every other state around Australia except Victoria, where they decided to do their own. One of the common questions I was asked every time we spoke to health authorities was, Barry, these COVID safe protocols we have developed with you as industry association are great. They're industry best practice. We acknowledge that. We thank you for your support in helping those come into play. But Barry, what are you going to do if one of your members or more doesn't abide by these COVID safe protocols? What will be Fitness Australia's response? And I said to them, well, we'll deregister that member, whether it be a business or a personal trainer. And they said, that's great, deregister, fantastic. What does it actually mean? So all I could say to them was, well, we'll deregister them. But what does that actually mean? And of course, it became very clear that we could do no more than deregister those members, which effectively meant we had little, I guess, ability to sanction those members that weren't complying with those COVID safe protocols. And it's interesting that during the lockdowns, it was quite okay for a physiotherapist to be offering a one-on-one rehab program in a gym, but a personal trainer offering the same program could not do that. And when we asked the health authorities why that was the case, they said, well, that's because physiotherapy is an allied health. They are regulated. The fitness industry is not regulated. Being self-regulated didn't quite cut to the chase, I guess. So because of that constant questioning, my board asked us as an industry association to ask the sector what the appetite out there was for the potential to regulate. Not that we were going to regulate, not saying we we're going to do this or who should be the regulator, but what was the appetite? We thought we needed to assess what the view out there in our sector was, both with members and non-members. Interestingly, in America, that land of the free and home of the brave, they are actually talking about regulation over there at the moment. Now, whether that's purely to get the gyms open again, as a tool to get the gyms open again, time will tell, but regulation is on the agenda over there. Anyway, late last year, through La Trobe University, we asked the sector who their views, their appetite for regulation. We had 1,300 respondents, 54% male, 46% female. Of those respondents, about 50% were current members of Fitness Australia, 38% had been members, so they're no longer members, and 12% had never been a member for whatever reason. The university people tell us that 1,300 respondents is more than enough to get some data which can be used to inform. It provided rigour. It was sufficient to provide a meaningful analysis. And what came out of that survey was some interesting points. The first thing is that 95% of respondents believe it's important for exercise professionals to be qualified. Now, I think we'd all be very surprised that if it wasn't at least 95%. I've got to say, I thought it would have been 100%, but 95% believe it was important for exercise professionals to be qualified. 85% believe it's also important to have continuing education. 15%, of course, did not. That's an interesting response as well. 90% believe Fitness Australia has a role, an important role, in supporting businesses and professionals. And that's not surprising because we are the Peak Industry Association, and the industry and our members particularly look to us to provide that role. 90% believe it's important for Fitness Australia to establish standards. Again, not a surprising result given the respondents, but also coming back to the 95% believing professionals should be qualified, etc. 90% believe it's important for government at all levels, state, federal and local, to recognise professionalism. And that comes back again to that 95% believing it's important for us to be qualified, professional development and so on. So no real surprises in those results. It reaffirmed what we exist for and what you are in the profession for. 70% believe Fitness Australia should have the ability to check adherence to agreed standards. So we should be able to go out and audit our members and see, okay, you are complying to the code of practice, the code of ethics, you're meeting COVID-safe protocols and so on. We didn't drill down into what those sanctions may be if they weren't, but 70% believe it's important for us to be able to do that with our membership base. Interestingly, 64% believe that we should have that ability with non-members. That's a pretty provocative and quite controversial response, to be quite honest. So these are people telling us that we should have the ability to go out and audit non-members. That's a pretty brave ask, I've got to say. 73% believe there should be a national regulator. 27% disagree. Now, how we're going to make all those other 90%, 95%, etc. work without having a national regulator is an interesting, I guess, conundrum. But nevertheless, 3/4 almost thought there should be a national regulator. 90% of respondents believe it's important to remove rogue operators from Fitness Australia membership. Now, this is a really interesting response rate. And it's interesting because when I've presented this topic in live audiences and said to the people in those audiences, can you define for me what a rogue operator is? The answers are quite interesting, and you might have a view of what a rogue operator is that you're happy to put in our chat room. I mean, clearly people that aren't qualified are defined as rogue operators. And again, this is what you're telling me, not what I'm saying. People are not qualified, people that don't have a first aid or CPR qualification, people who are operating outside of scope of practice, people who purport to be something they are not, people that aren't qualified perhaps to offer programs for the aged or the young, and so on. But one interesting one that came back was, who's a rogue operator? Well, anyone operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week is a rogue operator. And when you actually ask them, well, what do you mean by that? They said, well, they don't have staff there, so therefore they're a rogue operator. And yet we all know, of course, that 24/7 makes up a very large component of our industry. And they're here to stay unless they are regulated out of the industry. They're here to stay. So the point of the exercise there is how we define a rogue operator, who that rogue operator may be, depends very much on our own business model, our own ethical standards, our local competition, and what the market might be in our area. So it's very hard actually to pin that down. 90% believe it's important for industry to be united, and that's really good. And I think we've been able to demonstrate over the last 12 months the importance of having one voice, a strong voice, a unified voice that speaks on behalf of the sector. And I guess without blowing Fitness Australia's own trumpet here, I do believe that the only voice that's been speaking on behalf of our sector over the last 12 to 18 months has been Fitness Australia. So those are the responses from the regulation survey. And I just want to leave them there for a minute, and we'll come back to them a little bit later, because there's some overlay with the other survey we ran last year as well. So let's leave the regulation survey there now and move on to the member value survey. So we asked you, just our members, what you thought Fitness Australia was doing well, what we were doing not so well, what we should be doing, what we should stop doing. We had 736 respondents, 582 AusReps or personal trainers, 85 sole traders, and 69 businesses gave their views on what you thought we were doing. So again, what I'm going to share with you now is not my view, it's not Fitness Australia's view, it's your view that you have told us. Thanks, Rach. So the key takeouts or key messages you gave to us, and these are in no particular order. But first of all, you said there should be a consultation process implemented, regular open forums for members to nominate topics that you wanted to be educated on or just to stay informed. So I've just finished 14 briefings around Australia, visiting every state except Northern Territory. Apologise to anyone from Northern Territory who may be viewing this now. We are coming to Northern Territory later this year, but we didn't get there this time around. And they've been an opportunity for you to share with me your concerns. You tell me what I should know, what we should do, what we should not do, etc. And to increase that consultation, there will now be face-to-face forums around Australia, again, repeating what we've just completed, every 3 to 4 months, because we have some very important things to discuss with you. There'll be surveys, there'll be forums, more forums like this where you have the opportunity to tell us what you think. We'll continue to hold the regular Facebook Lives on issues of relevance that we think are relevant, but also, importantly, what you think is relevant. We'll hold more frequent briefing and consultation events like the 14 I've just done, and we'll ensure our social media is up to date as possible, and we'll keep checking those open rates and the click-through rates to make sure that you're actually not just seeing those emails, etc., but actually opening and reading them. Thanks, Rach. You said to maintain the frequency. Now, generally speaking, you were happy with the frequency of our communication with you, but not perhaps so happy about the quality of that communication. So what you said to us was you thought that too often Fitness Australia were talking at you or talking to you rather than with you. You thought we were telling you stuff that we thought you should know rather than what you think you should know. So we want to make sure that the messaging we are giving you and sharing with you is actually what you want to hear, that reflects what you need to know, what you want to know in a transparent and open and communicative way. So we'll ensure the emphasis is given to industry news, policy, regulatory updates, any special offers we've been able to negotiate with corporate sponsors and so on. But we want to make sure that what we are sharing with you and hopefully engaging with you is two-way, not one way. So we'll maintain the quantity and work very hard to improve the quality. The best way we can improve our quality is for you to give us feedback. We'll also check regularly to make sure the changes are hitting our social media stat KPIs as well. The next one was you said that Fitness Australia should promote the facilities of our members, our sole traders businesses, our personal trainers and AusReps via the online registry that then flows on to consumers. Now, I'd be the first to share with you and agree with you. Our current IT system is exceptionally clunky. It's very hard sometimes to navigate. It's very hard sometimes to find information you might be seeking. And that's not just for members, that's also for consumers. It's been that way for some time. I've acknowledged that, you've told me. Unfortunately, in the past, we haven't had the resources to be able to fix that up. Now we do have that resource. We have signed a new contract for a completely new IT system that will address all those issues. It's a $400,000 investment on behalf of Fitness Australia. It will make your work, your interaction with us much easier, but most importantly, it'll make the consumer's interaction with you and us as an industry association easier as well. But like any new IT system, it's going to take time to get that implemented, and there'll be no doubt a few bugs we've got to sort out. But I would hope that by the end of this year, end of this year or this time next year at the absolute latest, We have a completely new IT system in place which will address those concerns that you have raised with us. Now, CECs, these have been and have been for some time an issue of concern for you, and therefore an issue of concern for me, because many of you have taken the time, and I thank you, to actually communicate with me your concerns about CECs in terms of their relevance, the cost, accessibility. Can I just clear up one misunderstanding right up front? Some of you in that survey said that you thought we only promoted CECs because Fitness Australia makes money out of them. Well, I wish that was the case. That's not the case. What happens is we review all CEC programs for integrity, relevance to our sector, relevance to you, relevance to our code of practice, etc. We charge a small fee to the CEC provider to do that. That fee does not cover our resource in actually assessing it. But money from CEC provision, money in you enrolling in it, course fees, etc., go to the CEC provider. They do not come to us. But nevertheless, you also said there wasn't sufficient range. There's actually over 700 CEC programs, and they're growing every day. But clearly, they're not easy to access, not easy to find, and that's one of the issues we need to address. We're trying to get the cost down as much as possible with the CEC providers. We've introduced new CEC options ourselves at no cost, one of which, of course, is this particular webinar. Our webinars that we started running 6 weeks ago have had over 500 participants in each one of them. And I think that indicates that we are hopefully hitting the mark and you're interested in what we're offering. But again, we'll continue those webinars as we are today, but we want to make sure that those webinars are reflective of what you want to hear as well. So please feed that back to us. So we'll continue to make sure the relevancy is there, they're accessible on a range of topics. Webinar format I've just mentioned for you. There's other free CECs available through Fitness Australia as well. So if you've got your first aid or your CPR certificates, which we don't offer, it's possible to complete the 20 CEC requirement for your 2-year membership at no cost through options provided through Fitness Australia. If you are running a onboarding program for new personal trainers or new staff, and it's a legitimate onboarding program, not one that sort of says to the new staff, oh guys, there's the toilets over there, there's your locker, welcome to X, Y, and Z fitness studio. If it's a legitimate onboarding program, we will assess that for CECs and we'll provide CECs to that onboarding program. So your staff are encouraged to go through onboarding, they get recognition for it. We're also announcing some new CECs as well. So for personal trainers particularly, that are prepared to offer their services to the community at no cost, pro bono, their CECs will be attracted for that. Now, what that means in practice is that if a personal trainer goes out and works with the community to, say, for example, start an exercise program that might be tied in with a mental health program or a suicide prevention program, if the personal trainer is doing that at no cost, you'll get CECs for that. If you are helping a sporting team do strength and conditioning or helping with their fitness, you'll get CECs for that. We're currently in the process of negotiating with a couple of councils, and I think this will roll out pretty quickly Australia-wide, who currently levy a licence fee for a personal trainer to offer training in a public park. Those councils are prepared to waiver that fee if that personal trainer is prepared to offer that training at no cost. Now, at first glance, you might say, why should I do that at no cost? Well, first of all, it's a community outcome. You're actually getting more people exercising more often out in that community. If it's free, it means that more members of the community will actually partake and participate in your program. So that's a win for the council and the council residents. But also for you, clearly it's a funnel for potential ongoing training that you might be able to market and sell as a flow on from that personal training in that boot camp you're running in the park. So there'll be free CECs for that. So we're trying to work and develop new CEC programs that are relevant to you in growing your business, relevant to getting more people in the community active, and at either no or minimal cost. You also said that off last year's brand awareness, we should continue to build on that through our public relations and promotional activities. And you also said that, and I found this really interesting, stop advocating on behalf of the sector. Stop advocating on behalf of the sector. This is what you told us. And when I first saw that as a response, I thought, whoa, what's going on here? This is a very unusual response. Then when I drilled down to it, what you were telling us was stop advocating on behalf of the sector, but start advocating on behalf of your members. Now, why we had to start advocating on behalf of the sector last year was because the whole sector was closed down. If we wanted to get traction in the media, traction with health departments, traction with politicians, we had to advocate on behalf of the sector wide. We also had to acknowledge the fact that Fitness Australia in the wider community, in the media and politicians, had very, very low traction. So we had no choice but to advocate on behalf of the sector. But moving forward, we're going to advocate on behalf of our members only, because you quite correctly said to me and to the Fitness Australia, there are non-members out in the community, there are gyms out in the community, there are personal trainers out in the community who are benefiting from the advocacy that you are doing, Fitness Australia, but they are not part of Fitness Australia. They're not paying a membership fee, and they are not necessarily adhering to our standards, our code of practice, our commitment to professional development. So only advocate in the future on behalf of members, and that's what we're going to do. And I'll share with you something a little bit later which will demonstrate that. So we'll continue to promote Fitness Australia as, I guess, the go-to on for the media, for government, etc. You also said, do not try to regulate the sector, which was interesting. Personally, I think if we had tried to regulate the sector, it's something we could have achieved, but it would have been a long, hard, and probably even a bloody battle. There would have been some potential damage to us as an association, potential damage to the sector. So we are not going to try and regulate the sector. We are not going to be the industry regulator. And you've told us not to do that anyway. But you've said, rather than try and regulate the sector, work with the members to raise standards and adherence to those standards and audit and sanction as necessary. So we will do that. We will actually do exactly that. We'll promote membership, we'll promote adherence to standards, we'll promote and those regulations by members, and we will audit and sanction as necessary. And I'll come back to that a little bit later. This is where the member survey starts to overlap with the regulation survey. Thanks, Rach. I said at the start of this, the key takeouts, there wasn't, these weren't in any order of priority, but there is actually one, which you've been very strong. You've said to us, Fitness Australia needs to start advocating to the consumer about why the consumer should look out for a registered facility, a registered AusRep, sole trader, personal trainer. So this comes back to advocating on behalf of the sector. We need to start educating the consumer. If they are starting to think about starting an exercise program in a gym, in a park, wherever, the first thing should be top of mind for them is this gym, is this personal trainer, is this AusRep, is this program registered, recognised, accredited by Fitness Australia? We haven't done this in the past. If we have, we haven't done it particularly well. We are going to start that in July this year. We have put $250,000 into our budget to start that program. We use a variety of media as to how we're going to do that for maximum impact. But there are some questions we need to deal with before we actually start that consumer campaign. So I just want to go back for a minute and just go back over COVID over the last 12 months and our discussions with government, etc., regulation survey, and trying to bring together a few threads which point to some directions here. When we were shut down back in March last year, which seems a lifetime ago now, I know, but when we were shut down, so were yoga studios, Pilates studios, dance studios, martial arts studios, etc. And when that first happened, within 24 hours, I received some fairly robust communications from the CEOs of those organisations saying, basically, why has Fitness Australia closed us down? Why have you got the government to close us down? And really what happened there was we had no input into that. As you know, we were shut down with 24 hours notice. But because the government considers yoga studios, dance, Pilates, martial arts, all the rest of them as part of a gym, rightly or wrongly, that's where they are considered, they were shut down as well. After I'd been able to explain that to those modalities, they then said to us, generally speaking, well, we don't have a lot of resources. Sometimes we're only run by volunteers. We have minimal staff. We don't have a lot of advocacy ability. Would you, Fitness Australia, start advocating on behalf of Fitness Australia, on behalf of us as well? So on behalf of yoga, behalf of Pilates and so on. So we have done that. So many of our messages, many of our communications, our press releases actually don't talk about just gyms and personal trainers. They talk about the other modalities as well. And through that, we've moved a little bit closer to those modalities. And what it's I guess, raised in my mind and the board's mind is, does our name, Fitness Australia, does it help us as we reach out and build a stronger relationships with those modalities? Does it help us as we position ourselves in the wider sector? Is Fitness Australia the right name? Is Fitness Australia an exclusive name or an inclusive name? Now, to give that a bit of context for you, many of you will understand and appreciate the irony of a person not willing to go to a gym or join a personal trainer to start an exercise or fitness regime because they are not fit enough. People will not join a gym because they're not fit enough. Now, in some ways, Fitness Australia has got that impediment in some ways, because the holy grail that's come out of COVID, when I say the holy grail, I mean the gold target, the fantastic thing that we try to achieve as an organisation, in my view, is that exercise needs to be considered essential. Now, we know during the COVID lockdowns, the Prime Minister, the Health Minister, the Premiers, every Chief Health Officer said when they were speaking to the media, okay, you're in lockdown, this is terrible, but you can only go outside for 4 reasons. You can go outside to go to a doctor's appointment. You can go outside to do your basic shopping. You can go to work if it's not feasible for you to work from home. And you can go outside to exercise. They didn't say you can go outside to get fit. They didn't say you can go outside to maintain a fitness regime. They said you can go outside to exercise. In their next statements or in the next TV news, they then acknowledge the importance of exercise, not just to improve and maintain your physical health, but increasingly your mental health. That has been a common theme coming out of all of those stakeholders again, the Prime Minister, Chief Health Officers, Health Ministers, and so on. You should be looking at an exercise program or maintaining exercise or starting exercise to look after your mental health. In not one word and in not one situation that I can recall have they actually said you need to get fit to maintain your mental health. You need to maintain a fitness regime to maintain your mental health. So in the big picture, if we are trying to strategically get exercise considered essential, and if we're strategically trying to get exercise, I guess, linked very closely with mental health, we need to think about the name of our organisation. Again, is fitness an inclusive name or is it exclusive? Does it enable Fitness Australia to build relationships with the National Heart Foundation, with diabetes, with Kidney Foundation, with yoga, with Pilates, with dance, these other modalities, or does it exclude them from joining with us? Now, I don't know the answer to that question, to be quite honest, but the board has agreed that we need to review our name before we start a consumer campaign, because it would be quite pointless to start a consumer campaign saying to the consumer, get out there, guys, and look for a Fitness Australia registered gym, get out there and look for a Fitness Australia accredited personal trainer, and then 3 months later say, oh, forget all that, now go and look for this other name. So we have to make sure before we start that consumer education campaign that our name is right. We either need to, I guess, educate the consumer, not you and I, not our internal members, because you know what fitness is all about. And we know fitness starts with exercise, but we need to educate the consumer on either what fitness means and get around you have to be fit before you can go to a gym business, or we have to look at changing a name to something which is more inclusive. So we're working on that next 2 months before we start that consumer campaign. Now that consumer campaign, Fitness Australia can probably get about that much success out of it, because $250,000 is not going to go very far. And this consumer campaign is going to take 3-5 years. You can't educate consumers overnight. It's going to take some time. So we're going to ask you as our members, as our personal trainers, as our businesses to get on board, because ultimately we have in our membership of our members over 3 million Australians. So in our businesses, with our personal trainers through your client base. We have over 3 million Australians. So just imagine if you were putting out complimentary messages through your networks saying, I'm registered with Fitness Australia, I'm accredited by Fitness Australia, because Fitness Australia stands for standards, professional development, safety, code of practice. If you were sending out similar complimentary messages to our consumer campaign to your consumers, then we've got over 3 million Australians that are on board. So when those 3 million Australians are asked by a work colleague, a neighbour, a relative, whatever, I'm thinking about starting an exercise program. I'm thinking about going to a gym, joining a gym. Who should I join? Which personal trainer should I use? Well, hopefully they'll say, well, you should use Jim or Mary, great personal trainer. You should go to XYZ gym, really good gym. But if those gyms and personal trainers aren't available because of location, whatever, the next best thing we want them to say is, if you can't go to Jim or Mary, or you can't go to that gym, make sure the gym or personal trainer you go to is a member of Fitness Australia, because then you're guaranteed of a quality program, a quality facility. Then we all benefit. So if they don't go to your facility, someone else is recommending they look for Fitness Australia, which means they come to you. So the impact of that using our members goes from this to that. And then we start to be able to really leverage what we're on about. So the strategic priorities for the next 18 months, we need to get the government to actually action GAPA. They signed in 2018 a commitment to get 15% more Australians active by 2030. And unfortunately, since then, the federal government has done basically zero in actioning that program. Those of a certain age remember back last century, and doesn't that sound like a long time ago? Last century, there was a campaign called Life Be In It, which featured a fat gentleman called Norm, cartoon character who spent most of his time sitting on his couch with a beer in one hand, TV remote in the other. And that campaign was called Life Be In It. That campaign started in Victoria and was then operated by Federal Health across Australia. When it finished 3 years later, it had an 80% recognition factor, and 20% of people said they actually started an exercise campaign or started exercising for the first time because of that campaign. We need to reinvigorate, Norm, not a Life Be In It, but Life Get Back In It campaign. And the federal government needs to run this campaign. We had 20% saying they started last century, the government saying they want 15% starting this century. Hello, it's there. The proof is in the pudding. We need the government to start that GAPA program, and we need them to work with us. And we need fitness and exercise to get away from sport and rec in government thinking. Currently in every state and federally, fitness, exercise, physical activity sits with sport and rec. I don't believe we belong there. I believe we belong under health. 3 reasons. We aren't a sport. Okay, to play sport at a good level and enjoy it, you need to be fit. I accept that. But sport as a general activity, in most cases, particularly outside of the regional and remote areas of Australia, community sport is basically suffering from decreased participation rates. Spectator sport, particularly professional sport, is growing, but participation rates of community sport is falling off a cliff, made worse by COVID, because a lot of the community sports rely on volunteers to keep those clubs going. So those volunteers are usually older. That relationship between an older volunteer and the community sport has been broken during COVID. It's not easy to repair that. So we need to get away from sport because it's not a sport. We also need to get away from sport because it comes back into that other strategy. Exercise is essential, exercise and mental health. Exercise needs to be under health because that's where we belong. Exercise is a health outcome, or delivers health outcomes. The money federally sits in health. It frustrates me that so much money goes to mental health services to deal with a problem after it's become a problem, not before it becomes a problem. There's very little money that goes in preventative health with mental health. We need to convince the government. Exercise, they're telling us exercise is important. We need to help the government in its ignorance draw the lines between exercise is important to stop mental health. Exercise is essential. And by the way, a lot of exercise takes place under the direction of professional trained personal trainers in facilities which meet certain standards. We need to draw those links all together and demonstrate to the government that exercise belongs under the health department. So we need to move from sport and rec to health. And we're going to use research to help prove that case. And we're part of international research at the moment that's being coordinated through IRSA, our American counterparts, which is going to bring together all the evidence that sits out there globally, which demonstrates the importance of exercise in maintaining not just physical well-being, but mental well-being, demonstrates the clear linkages, proves it beyond doubt, and gives evidence to us to go to the government and say, action gapper, get programs going which gets the community exercising, and use associations like Fitness Australia and other community organisations to get it out of the community, to get a fitter, healthier, I guess, community overall. We're also going to introduce some new membership categories to enable new modalities who might want to join us as Fitness Australia in the future. And this will include things like strength and conditioning, include things like CrossFit, include Pilates studios or yoga studios operating as businesses that want to now be able to join Fitness Australia to be able to leverage off our advocacy and also give us greater advocacy ability, of course, but also be able to demonstrate to the government that we cover more than just fitness in gyms and personal trainers in the parks. We cover exercise and physical recreation. We're currently in discussions with one of the larger health providers who came to us just after Christmas as a result of COVID and said to us, they want to be able to pay for, subsidise their members of that health fund's gym memberships. They want to be able to subsidise their members using personal trainers to develop exercise regimes. Now, they're doing this for three reasons. First of all, the younger generation are leaving health funds in droves because they don't see the benefit of paying fees to be in a health fund when they don't pull much out of it through their contributions. So they want to give those younger people a reason to stay. They also understand the benefit of exercise. They're with us. They understand the benefit of exercise, and they know that if they can get their older cohort who are pulling the money out because of their illnesses, if they can keep them fitter, they're going to pull less money out. So there's a benefit to the older generation as well in getting them fit. There's a benefit to Fitness Australia because we can pass that on to you as members. They will help subsidise the members of the health fund working with you as a personal trainer, working with a gym. There's a benefit to us because then we can go hand in hand with that health fund to the health department federally and say, here is a health fund. Here is a health insurer. These guys know the nuts and bolts, the dollars of the benefits of people exercising. They will help us as we try and move from sport and rec across to health departments. I also believe that once we get this particular fund over the line, every other health fund will follow suit. This health fund is only going to recommend and subsidise their members' participation in a gym or with a personal trainer if that gym or personal trainer is registered with Fitness Australia. They will not do it for non-members. And that again reinforces the value of professional standards, code of practice, ongoing professional development, having personal trainers understand the needs and wants of different age cohorts, etc. So this is where we're heading in the future. This is our strategic priorities for the next 12 to 18 months. I hope you appreciate and understand that. Even more so, I hope you support that. I would encourage you to, if you have a view that you want to share with me, to either put it online now or come back to me after we have finished this session. On the bottom of this slide, there is my email address, my mobile number. I encourage you to speak with me, to email me, whatever you like, share your thoughts, because we can only take this industry association forward with your support, with your buy-in, I guess with your enthusiasm. There is absolutely, it'll be counterproductive for us to go ahead in a direction that left you behind or didn't have your support. I really hope that you do support where we're trying to go. I hope you understand why we're trying to do this. And I hope you get behind us as we do launch this consumer campaign. And I'll be coming out and speaking with you soon about another new initiative, particularly for our businesses, which is going to be how we can accredit our businesses so we can move from having a situation where businesses are registered with Fitness Australia to actually being accredited by Fitness Australia. And I'm hoping, Rach, the next slide might actually demonstrate why I'm talking about that. It's not, okay, sorry. So one of the slides we used in our in WA, sorry, one of the adverts we had in WA was, there we are, it's there now. So we used this slide in WA, we ran this in the media over there for 3 days. And I believe this is one of the reasons why when they relaxed restrictions, they took them off the gyms, but kept the the casino and nightclubs closed. Look at the bottom line there. Fitness Australia registered gyms are safe. This is a direct response to you telling us to promote Fitness Australia membership and our members, to only advocate on behalf of our members, not behalf on the sector. So we're not saying gyms are safe, which is what we said in Victoria during the lockdowns down there last year. We are saying Fitness Australia registered gyms are safe. That tagline there would have so much more power and credibility if we could say Fitness Australia accredited personal trainers and accredited gyms are safe. I'll leave you with that thought because we want to pursue that in the next 12 to 18 months in how we can make that available and get some buy-in and acceptance, and I guess really strong support from you. So I'm just going to go into the Q&A at the moment and see what's come up under the Q&A. I do not... Okay, so CECs, this is more a comment I think from Angela, that CECs are too expensive to keep working in the fitness industry. Well, thanks, Angela. As I indicated before, there are 20 CECs that are available through Fitness Australia that are a no cost, but hopefully we can continue to make sure that we provide a greater range of CECs that are either free or minimal cost to you. We've got some other questions that have come through. What's the difference between regulated and registered? Well, at the moment, regulation is effectively a government requirement. We do not regulate our industry at the moment. The industry is self-regulated, although you could argue, given the fact that we were shut down with 24 hours notice, we are actually regulated. I can't think of anything more regulated than being shut down, but our sector generally is self-regulated at the moment. So regulated is not registration. Businesses and members register to become part of Fitness Australia. We are not regulated. From Amanda, why can't exercise professionals, personal trainers and Pilates teachers be registered as allied health professionals? Well, personal trainers can't be registered as I understand it, Amanda, because we aren't regulated, so they can't join allied health. Probably is the same as Pilates. I guess that's something to take up with the allied health sector as to why that could be the case. But I'm hoping if they register with us, we were able to move down that process of accrediting them as well, which will give us, I guess, the same thing to some degree. Can I explain the difference between Fitness Australia and Filex? Okay, Filex is a separate company of which Fitness Australia has a small shareholding. It's owned by, it's a private company which is owned by other shareholders. Fitness Australia has a small shareholding, and we work with Filex to provide professional development opportunities for our members. We negotiate a discount for our members. You'll see we're also partnering with other providers of conferences and symposiums and professional development opportunities this year, including the Fitness and Wellness Show, the Fitness Technology Show, and others that we are partnering with to try and we will negotiate discounts for our members there. But Filex and Fitness Australia are two separate organisations. When I say we are a company, our legal status is we are a public company limited by guarantee, and that means we are a public company, but we are not for profit. It also means that my board, myself as a CEO, our whole organisation have to behave in exactly the same requirements that any other company has to operate in Australia. So my board has to operate under the same ASIC requirements as BHP, as Commonwealth Bank, etc. They are very rigorous governance standards. It means we can't be representing anyone else's interests but our members. Nick Wharton said on the last, there was a line about new membership levels. So the new membership, Nick, sorry, that slide's been moved. The new membership levels are to do with new modalities, trying to encourage other businesses that might operate in the yoga, Pilates, strength and conditioning, CrossFit, dance, wherever. They don't have the ability as a business, as a facility to register with their bodies. So Yoga Australia, Pilates Australia, as I understand it, don't have categories for businesses. So we want to be able to make available to those operations, those modalities, some new categories to be able to join with Fitness Australia and help us in our general desire to have exercise, physical activity, fitness, reclassified as essential, make that move from sport across to exercise. Now, when I've asked, just to go back a step, when I've floated at our public meetings, the concept of Fitness Australia possibly changing its name, it's not set in concrete. We are exploring the potential for that. 95% of people in those meetings have said to us, change your name. The 5% who said didn't change your name, when I actually spoke to them after the meeting, said to me, Barry, it's not so much don't change your name, but if you do change your name, remember where Fitness Australia has come from. Do not forget where fitness has come from. Do not forget your personal trainers. And any name change that might happen, and it won't be my decision. And by the way, I don't have a preferred name. I've got 100 names slung around my head, none of which I'm going to share now because it might scare the daylights out of you. But we will get expert advice on that if we change our name. But if we do change our name, it won't be about diluting our product. It'll actually be about adding strength to our existing membership base, our existing product. So we actually can advocate stronger on behalf of other modalities, yes, but never forgetting where we've come from and never forgetting the role of personal trainers and the businesses you operate and the reason why you exist and the importance of professional development. That will be always critical to our mission, always critical to our vision. But it may be possible that if we do change our name and bring in more members, bring in other modalities, it gives us greater strength to be able to advocate on behalf of everybody. And we all benefit from those increased strength and that increased capacity, I guess. And Leanne will add Tai Chi to those modalities as well. Thank you for that suggestion. It's not something that's been on our radar. If you've got some other ones you want to suggest to us as well, I thank you for that suggestion. It indicates maybe you're sharing our thinking. So please share your views on the chat line. I'll have a look at these afterwards. If you've got a very strong view one way or the other, Rach, can you go back to the slide which has got my contact details on it, please? If you can, by all means, please call me. Don't all call me at once. Text me, email me, and I'll do my very best to get back to you, because quite seriously and quite genuinely, we need to make sure that as we move forward, we represent your best interests. We represent we have your support. We represent your enthusiasm, and I sincerely hope that you really get on board in this with this consumer campaign. The whole idea of making us stronger, the whole idea of moving from sport to health, the whole idea of engaging the government on and forcing them to actually do something, just not talk. Do something about this gap they've signed up to. Do something to get the community more fit, more exercising, more physical activity. Because at the end of the day, a healthier community is going to mean more people are going to consider exercising. More people are going to consider going from exercising to getting fit. More people are going to join gyms. More people are going to use a personal trainer. And there's 20% cap that people tell me will never get more than 20% of Australians members of gyms. I personally believe that's an urban myth. I think we can break that 20% easily, but we need to demonstrate to the community the importance of physical activity, the importance of exercise, and from that, the importance of moving towards fitness. Thanks for paying attention today. I hope that has been of interest of you.